Let's look at some examples just from this verse. Mary is putting aside everything else as she intently listens to Jesus. Even with all the commotion and all the extra people, I'm sure this wasn't a 5-bedroom house that they were in, and I've got 12 disciples plus Jesus plus Mary plus Martha. I mean, I'm sure it's got to be crowded and there's a lot of commotion going on, but she didn't waver. She never let anything disrupt her attention to Jesus. Jesus had a destination, as I spoke earlier in Luke 9:51, which says, as the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. But he took the time to stop and to teach. Another example from just this one little verse. Jesus didn't need a synagogue to share the gospel. He didn't need a church building. It was wherever he was at any moment in time. It did not matter. Jesus was about the Father's business. The Lord wasn't distracted by hunger. Martha was in there whipping up some dish for them all. The Lord never wavered. He was focused on teaching. And Jesus didn't have to look for an opportunity to teach. He made it. Not too long ago, I was having a conversation with an individual, and it just flows out of my mouth. I don't know why it happens, but it does. And I asked the question, well, how are you doing spiritually? And it caught him flat-footed. Well, I've never been asked that question before. What does that mean? I said, well, that's a good question. What does that mean? So I had to think now. Because I normally just ask that question and people will say, oh, good. It's just kind of like, how are you doing, you know? And they had to stop and they said, I'm not sure what you mean by that. And I said, well, how are you doing with your relationship with the Lord? How are you doing in your prayer life? How are you doing in reading the Bible? How is your love relationship with Jesus Christ? And they didn't have a good answer. When we think about the work that God is doing in us, are we taking the time on our journey through life to stop and look for teachable moments, both for us and for those that we come into contact with? Are we living to get up in the morning to read His Word, to find out what He has in store for us today? Are we looking for every opportunity to pray and to spend time fasting and meditating on what the Lord is doing in our life?